Well, Steve, we've had a couple of weeks off, but we're here doing another episode of the Steel Target Paint Podcast. How you been?
I'm doing good. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Got to shoot a little Saturday at the Wyoming Antelope Club's monthly match. Didn't have anything to write home about. A lot of rust, but I did learn where I need the improvement. You been doing any shooting?
Yeah, I shot the local match over here a couple of weeks ago, and then been doing some training, and then, I'm excited to share that the Georgia State Steel Challenge match is completely sold out, and it's got 347 competitors, or 347 guns. And so last year that would have been the largest level 2 match, and this year it certainly may be the largest level 2 match. So I'm helping out with some sponsorship stuff, and we're looking to get this match up and running, and of course get it over so we can give away some cool stuff.
Well, that's pretty cool. I know I've got 5 guns entered in that match, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Jeff, we've got another world champion with us tonight. All the steel shooters recognize him from his accomplishments in the Steel Challenge. Welcome, BJ. How you doing?
Good, guys. How are y'all?
Oh, great.
Fantastic, BJ. Thanks for being on the podcast. So, you are one of the old stalwarts. I mean, all the steel shooters are going to know you, but how long have you been shooting?
Let's see. I started competing late 2000 is when I started competing, and then I started shooting Steel Challenge in 2005.
2005. So this year it'll be a 14-year veteran.
Yep, and I'm turning 30.
Okay, so you're like many of them that were able to start young and excelled and continue to excel. I take it.
Yeah, I said I've grown up on the range. I've grown up in the industry, and feel extremely fortunate to have the opportunities that I've had. Across the years, it's been a lot of fun, and I still got a lot of years left in me, I hope.
Well, that's great. What was it exactly back when you started that drew you to the shooting sports? I mean, did you grow up around guns, or grow up hunting, or was it something like that, or was it just the want of competing?
Well, we didn't really grow up around guns. My dad had a couple of guns here and there, but nothing serious by any means, and no handguns. And strangely enough, we were flipping through channels one day and saw it was actually USPSA Nationals on Jim Scouten's show, which that show was actually predating Shooting USA, so that is another indication how long ago it was. But me and my brother saw it on TV and thought, that looks pretty fun. And at that point we had actually just moved basically from being right outside of D.C. in Northern Virginia to some land out in the Shenandoah Valley. So we had, the better opportunity and better space to start trying to shoot a little bit, and that's just kind of how I got into it, and then the rest is kind of history, I guess. We my family moved back to Texas, I guess, when I was like 16, and then about 4 years ago is when I moved to Idaho. So it's been almost what most people would consider a full career already.
Well, you're definitely one of the bright stars in the game. Now, when you were coming up, I mean, did you self-taught? A lot of people now have the advantage of watching your YouTube videos. I know I've watched a number of them. Or did you, go to any of the top shooters at the time and try to get training from them?
I would say it's kind of the mix of both. I was really, really fortunate in that when we started in Northern Virginia, the talent pool there is incredibly deep. It's kind of Yeah, I would say it's akin to where kind of the Atlanta area is now. Where you'd go to a local match and we had Phil Strader was there, Todd Jarrett was there, and then about half a dozen other grandmasters were shooting at a local match. So you had a huge depth of knowledge and the right way of doing things, shown to you from the very beginning. And I trained with Phil. Phil was, I guess, is definitely one of, excuse me, the people I consider, my first mentor in the sport. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, I've known Phil for 19 years. And the comment was, how are you old enough to have known Phil for 19 years? But yeah, I mean, from there, that was back in the days when Jerry and Kay Mitchell would run their junior camp. Both my brother and I attended that camp in different years. So, still very, very close to, their family, especially after we moved. I was only about 2 hours away from Jerry. So I would go over and shoot with Jerry all the time, especially when we were, when we were ramping up for Steel Challenge back when he shot it quite a bit. I was over there a lot with him. So I said it's kind of the mix of both, I would say.
Okay, excellent.
So, P-Day, over the years, you've had some amazing or exceptional accomplishments in steel. Is there one that you remember most or that sticks out in the back of your mind?
I would definitely say, as far as stuff that sticks out to me, shooting under 80 with an iron sight gun is probably the thing I'm really most proud of that I've done in the sport. Tons of people. I remember back in 2008 time period, I think it was. Which is when we're chasing the 80 seconds with open guns. And it took us several years to get under 80. We were right there for a while, and then 3 of us did it the same year. Max, Casey, and myself all did it in the same year. And then I believe we're still the only 3 to have shot under 80 with a center fire gun, center fire pistol in the match. But then several years ago, probably I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, the story is actually funny. Actually, it wasn't very funny at the time. It was when it was at Frank's place. We had I shot like an 84 or something with my iron sight gun, which is really, really good, especially at the time. Still is. And then the next day I was trying to get ready for the open match, and my open gun basically just totally crapped out on me. The chamber, come to find out, the chamber had eroded to the point that basically cases were way expanding, after every shot, because that barrel probably had about 250,000 rounds on it.
Wow.
So it was tired, and I decided that essentially the morning of the match, the morning of the open match, that it was done. So I couldn't make the gun work, so I actually ended up shooting my iron sight gun again in open, because that's what I had, and that's what I was essentially just trying to salvage Steelmaster at that point, because I knew I think I was like 6 or 7 seconds up for Steelmaster, going into the last day. So that was, I went out there and like, well, if I can just hang close enough to win Steelmaster, I'll be good. And I actually ended up shooting like an 82 with the iron sight gun that year. And I finished second and third in the overall results. that was pretty cool. And then
that's amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. And then then kind of from that point, especially, I'm like, okay, I know I can break 80 with my iron sight gun. I know I can do it. And it took me a while, and there were some times I was super close and then bombed on the last stage. And then I guess it was 2 years ago, I finally shot, I guess, 79.7 or something like that. It wasn't super far under 80, but it was, it was pretty. It wasn't 79.99 either.
Yeah, you did that at the
2017
World Speed Shoot out in California, correct?
I believe it was. Yeah, I believe it was 2017.
Yeah, because I was out there at the match, Jeff, and you could hear the people were just talking about, hey, BJ's on fire, BJ's on fire, and then after you shot the sub 80, a bunch of people, Dave Savigny, and just a bunch of folks walked up to me and said, wow, BJ just shot under 80 with an iron sight gun, and I was like, was that with a center fire gun or a rim fire gun? And, yeah, that's a huge feat. It'll be interesting to see when the next time somebody else will do that. That's a significant accomplishment in this sport.
It was tough, and yeah, I think this past year, I think I shot like an 83 or something. I mean, it was not anywhere close to what it was previously.
Well, BJ, I'm looking at last year's World Speed Shooting Championships, and you're not giving yourself enough credit. You shot an 80.02.
Wow.
Okay. Now,
actually,
here's something.
I remember what happened. I can tell the story in a second. I actually now thinking about it, I know what was going on there, and I'll tell the story in a second because it's actually kind of a funny story.
All right. So now for our listeners, okay, he was second in open, okay, with a 75.53. Follows that with an 80.02 in limited. Follows that with an 86.29 in single stack. Follows that with an 88.33 in production. Okay.
Wow.
The next closest iron sight gun was KC shooting production at 94. So for any of you guys and gals that are out there and you want to learn how to shoot iron sights and steel, BJ's the man. So let's hear this story, BJ. We always like a good one.
So yeah. So the story goes, we shot open the first day. And I was second, right? And I knew that, and I was shooting. We were shooting the iron sight match, and I was as it was just noted, I was pretty solidly ahead of the rest of the pack, and we got to outer limits, and I started, they're supposed to look at the scores before you finish, but I did, and I started doing the math in my head of what it would take for me to shoot outer limits in that I could win the match, because it was mathematically possible, highly improbable, but it was it was doable, and I think I had to shoot like a 990 total on outer limits or something like that, and I would have won the match with my iron sight gun, which so I was like, well, I'm far enough ahead, I'll give her a whirl and see what happens. I think
my beer.
I think with the penalties, my first run was a 990. So after that, I kind of backed off and just kind of shot like, normal for a second and just finished.
Yeah, not to rub salt in the wound, but yeah, you had a 935 with 2 penalties.
Yeah. It wasn't, it was right there where I needed it to be if I had hit the target.
Well, I tell Steve all the time the targets actually move on me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's there when I pull the trigger. I don't know what happens after that.
Well, you see, the problem is the gun usually hits what it's pointed toward.
Yep.
Most of the time.
Most of the time it hits what you're pointing at.
BJ, you've had, a number of amazing accomplishments in steel, but, I don't know how many of our listeners also realize that, you've been a member of at least one world shoot team. Has there been more than that? Have you been on more than one?
No, I haven't been on more. Actually, I take that back. I have been on 2 world shoot teams. I actually forgot about this latest one of all things. Yeah, so I've been busy the past couple of years. It's been an interesting couple of years. But yeah, so I shot on the production team for the World Shoot in France. That was 2 years ago now. So it's coming up next year. I need to get ready for that. And then I shot on the open team when I was in Bali. And then I also went to the Ecuador match, but I was not on a team for that one. When I just attended, and then for some reasons that I can't really remember, I skipped a few in the middle. Well, I know why I skipped Greece, because I didn't want to get stuck in Greece. That was, that was during
Did you shoot it? Did you shoot it when it was in the USA? When it was in Frostproof? Did you shoot it down here?
I did not. I actually
Okay.
did not. That one, I think basically what happened there is, if I remember the time frame right, I wasn't able to really dedicate any time to practice. I wasn't able to train for it just because that would have been 2012, I believe, is when it was in Frostproof. And that one I was actually, at that point I was not planning on being a shooter. I was planning on jumping out of airplanes and shooting bad guys in the face. But then I got hurt, and that didn't work out. So I came back to shooting, but I think at that point it was too close to the match for me to get in and do all that stuff. So I did not shoot it when it was in Frostburg, and I hate that. I of course wanted to when I was in the home country, but France was super cool. That facility is absolutely amazing. And then Thailand should be really nice as well.
Yep, I saw a lot of the videos, and it looked like the environment was amazing. The stages looked very challenging. I've talked, there's a number of World Shoot team members down here in Florida that I see all the time at the matches, and they all said the same thing, that it was just an amazing experience, and the host country was fantastic, which is good to hear. You like to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah. France was great. It's actually the easiest international travel experience with guns I've ever had.
Wow, that's good to know.
And that even includes going to Canada.
Well, I'm from Buffalo, New York, and so Canada was like northern New York when I was growing up, but it's definitely changed now with the immigration laws that everyone else has got going on, and you needed a license to get into Canada. Now you need a passport, no matter who you are. So
yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
you're shooting USPSA. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're shooting USPSA, you're shooting steel. Are there any other, major disciplines that you enjoy shooting?
I shot 3-gun a whole bunch in the past. That I guess that kind of cooled when I moved to Idaho because there's not a whole lot up here that's within driving distance for any matches, and it's just flying to a 3-gun match is such a pain. And I know that's a cop out, and it is. I mean, let's face it. It's but just logistically, with trying to balance everything going on, I can handle pistol matches a lot more readily than I can handle 3-gun matches, and it's better. Wilson Combat is my primary sponsor, and they're a pistol company by nature, so it works out.
Excellent. Thanks for that.
So, BJ, one of the things we try to get all of our shooters and guests that are on the podcast to talk about is, can you give a tip to our listeners? Because a lot of folks that listen to our podcast are avid shooters, and they're always looking to get better. Do you have a tip that you can share with them?
Yeah, I think the biggest tip is, well, two things. One, don't be afraid to get training. Don't be afraid to seek it out. Whether it's for me, it's the best. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, you want to shoot another pistol? You're the guy, that's for sure.
BJ, we are not above self-promotion.
That's right.
So don't be afraid to seek out training. And then, the other one really is figure out your trigger pull. I've got a different kind of the different way of explaining or going about trigger press, and I guess kind of the easiest thing I can say is make sure that you're I call it an activated trigger prep. So I'm not just taking up the slack out of the trigger. I'm putting 80%, 90% of the pressure needed to actually get the trigger to fire, or get the gun to fire rather, on the trigger before the sight picture verification, and then either that sight picture and pull at the last 10 or 15%, and that really makes a big difference in your shooting. And I've got an article about it up on it's actually on my company's website, which is shortroundsupply.com. We sell ammo, optics, all sorts of good stuff for shooters, and then there's also a blog I post periodically. I've got some other guys that are starting to to put some content up, and I said you can search on the blog for what did I call the article? I can post it again, or I can send it to you guys, and you can post it with a podcast maybe. But I titled the article "You suck at pulling the trigger," which is true, because most people do. Most people do, and that's not a dig on that's not a dig on anybody. It's just kind of it's just kind of true, because most people don't know how to teach it correctly.
Right.
Squeezing the trigger is incorrect. And then the one that's a little better is taking up the slack. But if you take up the slack on, let's use a 1911 for example, right? Your pre-travel before you hit any meaningful resistance is maybe 6 ounces, maybe.
Right.
And that's on a heavy trigger. My competition guns, the total weight is 1.5 pounds. The pre-travel is only 2 ounces, 2.5 ounces. So you put such a tiny amount of pressure on the trigger, it's not really doing anything for you. And this is what I was explaining. Actually, shooting the little action league at my indoor range the other night. There's just some one of their other customers there that was shooting and struggling a little bit, and she was talking about what a great trigger her Springfield 1911 had, and then it was 4 pounds. And I gave her the example, and this is always the example I use. Okay, if you've got a 4-pound trigger on your gun, that gun only weighs roughly 2.5 pounds.
Right.
So that means you still got to put almost double the weight of the gun on the trigger to get it to fire. So that means your possibility of steering the gun around, if you've only put 10% of the pressure needed on it, is huge. And
Right.
if you shoot a Glock, if you shoot a Glock or a polymer gun, that number is even, it's off the charts. So learn where your trigger pull is, learn to be able to put, 85% of pressure needed to fire the gun on the trigger, steer out of the sights, and then let it fly.
So, BJ, I appreciate you sharing that with us. It does make a ton of sense what you just said. And with my competition guns, I try to keep them, the trigger pull somewhere down in that 2-pound area. One of the things I want to ask you about, because, when you're talking about shooting open or limited and you're shooting, sub 80 on the majority of the stages and Steel Challenge besides outer limits, the most amount of time that you're actually shooting the gun, you're actually drawing the gun, at least for somebody like myself, because your transitions are so quick. What have you done to increase the speed of your draw and get to that first target quick?
Hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of the dry fire.
Sure.
That's really the one spot for sure. That dry fire works to improve is your draw and some other what I call manipulation or administrative type skills. But their Steel Challenge is definitely the draw. I do little stuff specific to Steel Challenge. Like I'll set my holster up specifically for a wrist above shoulders draw. So it's actually kind of tough to draw from hands at sides because the rake is completely wrong for hands at sides.
Right.
So I'll set holsters up. I'll set gear up, specifically for that. And then the easiest way to improve is your reaction time. And there's a few different ways you can do that. You can dry fire with a timer, which is something I do a little bit leading up to the match for sure, because I want to be hearing the timer as much as possible. You can have the gun on the your regular reaction time drill, which you got the gun on the target, trigger prep to react to the buzzer and fire the shot, so you have an actual time that you have reacted in, and it should be under a good time is under 20 or 0.2. Great times are in the mid to low teens.
Yeah.
And those are really, really tough to get. My personal goal, if I look at myself under high speed video, because we are lucky enough to live in the future and everybody's got a camera that'll shoot 240 frames a second in their pocket nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
My personal goal is I want the gun to be clear of the holster by the end of the buzzer.
Yeah. So that's about 0.4 seconds, somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's about 0.3. I mean, it depends on the timer, right? I mean, sometimes,
Right.
Most people say the buzzer's 0.3, but, there's timers out there that are like 25, and then there's other ones that I feel like are like, a second. Like the huge old patch boxes that are from the 80s. You hit the button. Yeah. You hit the button on that thing, and it's like you're done shooting by the time the buzzer stops.
Man. So quick follow-up question around the draw. So let's talk two different stages that, two different sight pictures. So smoke and hope, with your limited gun, how fast is your draw in the first plate in that .75, .8 range, or what?
It's about a 63.
Whew, that's cooking, brother. That's cooking.
Yeah, my goal is definitely to be in the sixes. You know, if you're in the sixes, then it's pretty easy to have like a 1/6 to 175 total, because then it's basically 20 splits. It's 20 splits the rest of the way if you look at it that way. So you really got to cook. Smoking hope, as I say, you really have to sacrifice your grip for speed.
Let's talk about a stage that maybe not quite as fast. Let's talk about pendulum. So what's your first?
You're going to say pendulum, aren't you?
What's that?
My first shot on pendulum with an iron sight gun is about 115. With an open gun, it's probably high 90s.
Oh, that's blazing. All right, I just want to see how much work I need to do, Jeff. I'm good now.
All right. Well, BJ, I want you to point something out to our listeners. And you may have heard one of the young kids on the scene really crushing it in the rimfire and the PCC and the rifle world, Cole Bush. He's got a video out there, and it's actually a slow-mo video. And it shows that he's actually stopping on every plate. If you play it in real time, it doesn't. And you're doing the same thing, I'm assuming, when you're shooting, is that there is that split second of stop. You are not drive-bying, except for maybe Smoke and Hope and maybe plate 2 and Accelerator. Is that correct?
I would say it really depends, and you pointed out the two that I would say are probably the ones that never stop. Smoke and Hope. I will say in Smoke and Hope, I definitely stop the gun with an iron sight gun because I don't even look at the sights until the last plate.
Right.
And I'm not kidding on that. I use a total plate focus. So I have to really discipline myself to stop the gun, because if I don't stop the gun, I miss. But in open, the gun doesn't ever really stop, and then on plate 2 on Accelerator, yeah, I mean, I would say, I've shot a lot of practice days where you basically just see a horizontal stripe of hits across the target.
Yeah.
And other than that, I mean, you can get away with certain stuff, like maybe the front plates on roundabout. You can you don't necessarily have to be totally disciplined on those. But definitely, all of the other targets, you got to be stopping the gun. I mean, you have to, again, and that's why, I go back to the activated trigger prep being such an important piece, especially with your steel challenge, because you want the gun absolutely ready to fire. The moment you see the sights where you want them, you don't want anything preventing you from triggering that shot. And so where so many people have problems is they'll see the sights where they want them, but they don't have the trigger prep. So then they'll tell themselves pull the trigger or fire the gun, whatever, but either their eyes are already moved or they grab against the gun so aggressively, trying to get it to to fire instantly, and that's why they miss.
Well, because they're breaking their sight. It sounds like in that instance they'd be breaking their sight picture because they're yanking the trigger.
Right. I mean, I said it's a couple different things. Like I said, it can either be an instance they've already moved their eyes. You've already moved your eyesight. For the guys that are at a higher level, they're transitioning more aggressively. So they've moved their eyes, and they don't have the gun ready to fire, so they're not having their follow through, and they're already starting to drag the gun off of the target, because the gun follows your eyesight, right? And then at a lower level, it's either jerking the trigger or it's really more of a. I believe it was Robbie Latham that used the term grip management. We're basically their whole hands, both hands squeeze so much, and instead of holding the gun steady, they grab with their whole hands and move the gun that way. It's not even so much jerking the trigger predominantly as it's they're moving both hands and therefore moving the entire gun.
Gotcha. Let's touch back a little bit on steel. You are what I would call one of the purists. You're competing for Steelmaster, so you're shooting open or a center fire with a dot. You're shooting a center fire with a iron sight, and then you're shooting rimfire pistol open. Are we ever going to see you dabbling in any of the other divisions, or is it just something you've got too much going on?
The past couple of years I've shot quite a bit. I think, I think 17 I shot 6 different guns, and 15 and last year 18 I shot 5.
Okay.
I would say for the most part it's always dependent on schedule. It used to be that you shot rimfire, limited, open, period, no deviation, no options. And then they kind of started relaxing that rule. So, Max, KC, and I tend to shoot open first, and kind of get that out of the way, which is what the three of us are chasing the most still. Even with the growth you've seen in some of the other divisions, it's for the three of us, that's the title that's the one.
Right.
Is the center fire pistol score. So the three of us tend to shoot that first. And then from there I usually shoot limited second. Because that's the next one I care about the most. And then from there it's kind of a free for all. This year I'll probably shoot single stack and production again. I've got my rimfire rifle. I've got an X-ring from Tactical Solutions. I've got all the stuff. To go crazy. I got PCC. I shot PCC one year and figured out I don't like shooting rifles in the Steel Challenge. It's really hard. Really hard. It takes a totally different technique and totally different mindset to shoot a rifle in Steel Challenge than it does a pistol. And if you, I know KC thinks the same thing. If you ask KC, he's like, oh yeah, shooting pistols is way easier. So we'll see. I mean, I said it just depends, the schedule and what's going on and how much time I can dedicate to it. There's a lot of people dedicating a lot of time to the rifle side of the game, and I just don't know that I'm there. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I am a super competitive guy. I mean, like,
no, we would never. Did you know that?
You'd never guess
I would
that,
have never
right?
figured that out. I would never guess that.
No. And it has trickled down to my children, who everything is a race. It's a race to the car. It's a race to the door. It's a race up the stairs. It's anything. And when one or the other loses, they'll tell the other one it's not a race. And until they win, and then they go, I won, and yeah, it's just a mess. But I'm the type of guy, if I know I'm not going to be able to dedicate the time to be truly competitive, I'm probably just not going to shoot it. And that's a right, wrong, or indifferent. That's kind of the way it is. I don't like to suck at anything.
Well, I'm guessing that that time is being spent. Of course, you mentioned you've got a family, but and you mentioned it earlier in the podcast. You've started short round supply, and you gave our listeners a little bit about that. But why don't you go a little deeper into what is short round supply about? What is it that you got? What are you hoping to provide to the shooting community?
Yeah, I mean, short round supply. I got it up and going last July, so we haven't been around even a year yet. But what we're doing, I guess, differently or better than other people really boils down to technology and logistics. I was very fortunate, the past 2 years to work in a very forward e-commerce project and company where we're able to do a lot of super cool things from an e-com perspective that was at that time definitely emerging technology in the gun industry. It's several years old by tech standards, but it was emerging in the gun industry. So when I left that company and started Short Round, I was able to bring that experience to this project and use newer technology than what was being used there. And we're at a point where, with the way we warehouse products, the way that we ship, the technology that we use, it enables us to do things. We're basically Amazon Prime for ammo, which everybody knows you can't ship ammo air, right? It has to go ground. But our products are positioned in places throughout the country where we can hit about 75 to 80% of the U.S. population within 3 days of the ground shipping.
Wow.
And I get the reports. I actually just checked the report yesterday as I was going through some training stuff with some other people. And I was showing them basically some of their analytics panel, and the average time it was just last week. It wasn't a huge piece of the puzzle, but it was basically February 10th through, it was during the week, so like the 10th through the 15th. The average time from order receipt to order shipment was 12 hours and 45 minutes.
That's great.
That's a turn.
And then essentially two to 3 days, for people to get their stuff. So I said it's about as close to Prime as you can get, right? And we've had a lot of success with it. People are really happy. You can look on Google reviews, and we don't have a ton. Not like legacy companies that have been around a while, but right now we're at a perfect 5-star rating. And it's basically all of the same comments. Order shipped, prices are good, shipping's reasonable, and I got it. I mean, there's several that's like, I don't understand how I got it so quickly. So I know, right? Right when we started, we had one guy that was pretty close to where the warehouse is located. He got his order in under 24 hours.
That's great.
Wow.
Yeah, he placed the order at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and UPS delivered at 11 o'clock the next morning.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's some pretty neat stuff, and we've got, I said, the great technology partners behind us, and good technology is not cheap, but it pays in the end.
Sure.
And you said it's more than just ammo too, right? I think you mentioned optics as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got ammo is kind of our bread and butter right now, just because as an emerging business, ammo is the commodity and the consumable that people are always looking for. So it's the easiest product category to grow. But yeah, we've got optics, we've got mags. Excuse me. Yeah, we've got optics, we've got mags, we've got cleaning supplies, we've got parts, hand guards, butt stocks. I mean, we've got most everything. There's about 10,000 SKUs right now. Hopefully the next month, I've been saying this for too long, month or so, we're going to start adding some more reloading stuff. And that probably won't be able to ship quite as quickly because that'll probably come directly from the manufacturer on that side. But yeah, we're looking for partners to help us grow and grow their business. And so far we've had a tremendous amount of success. To where we've been told by some of our industry partners that we're essentially the #1 startup business account they've had in 2018, and we're only around for half a year. So
yeah, congratulations on that and continued success. So everybody listening, shortroundsupply.com, right, BJ?
That's it. Short Round Supply. You're going to see a little guy giving you a thumbs up. Sign up to the newsletter. You get 5% off your first order. And yeah.
Very, very cool. Very cool, BJ. Congratulations on your success with that. And hopefully 2019 better to you than 2018 was. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure it will be, and I'm sure the ever-growing field of Democratic presidential hopefuls are going to continue to increase business to the gun industry.
I knew where he was going with that.
That's right. So, BJ, you talked a little bit about training. You have, I think last year you did a camp, but do you travel the country doing training, or do people need to come to Idaho, or how do they get in contact with you for training?
Yeah. The easiest way to get in contact with me for training is really through Facebook. I've got my personal page and an athlete page. Either one, you can get in touch with me there. You can email me. It's just you can essentially go to Short Round Supply and just email them, and it comes to me. I see all of the customer service tickets. So you can email there. You can go to My Gun Tips. I mean, I'm not a hard person to get a hold of by any means. But yeah, I do travel and teach. I've got a couple classes set up. I'm teaching an IDPA class out in Colorado Memorial Day weekend in conjunction with a match there. Probably going to teach a couple classes up in Canada again this summer. That was my requirement after going there in September of last year, that it was too cold. And it was already snowing.
Oh yeah.
It was like 25 degrees and snowing.
Well,
I'm not doing that
if you go
again.
up there again and there's snow, Steel Target paint comes in various colors besides white.
Oh yeah, I mean, it sucked. So probably going to teach an IPSC class and a steel class up there again. Still a couple classes that are kind of forming up. If you want to host a class, get in touch with me and we'll see about getting it set up. We've also got the junior shooting camp that we're hosting out here in Idaho. We have a USPSA camp and a speed steel camp. The dates for that is July 28, 27, 28, 29 for, 28, 29, 30 for the USPSA camp, and then July 31, August 1st and 2nd for the speed steel camp. So that website is juniorshootingcamp.com, and you can find all the info about the camp there.
Hey, Jeff, friends of the podcast and sponsored shooter with us, Jenna Jones, had so many good things to say about the junior camp that BJ did, and Rhonda couldn't stop talking about it. And so we'll post some links when we publish this podcast, and so other junior shooters and other competitive shooters can take advantage of your training. Appreciate you sharing that with us, BJ.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to call Jenna and Rhonda out because they hadn't signed up for this year yet. So they need to hurry up and
lay down the gauntlet.
Oh, what's that? Rhonda's putting out a GoFundMe page.
That's right. We are not above self-promotion or calling people out for any reason whatsoever. So you fit right in. Good job.
That's right.
Perfect.
I was going to say, BJ, this has been a lot of fun talking with you. I know when I started, I haven't been shooting very long. In fact, this June it'll be just 3 years. But, some of the first YouTube videos I ever saw were the ones you'd put out there. And I've met you at the matches, and it's just amazing to have you on the podcast. And I just want to say thank you for everything. Every time I've come up to you, you've been willing to shake my hand and talk to me for a minute, and I'm sure other shooters have that same experience, and it's greatly appreciated. So just thanks for being the person that you are, and of course, being on the podcast.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys having me.